Serena slid the folder across the table and watched her husband's face change. "Go ahead," she said quietly. "Open it." Dominic looked at her. Then he looked at the folder. Then he opened it. The silence that followed was the loudest thing that had ever happened in that kitchen. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Because before the folder, before the silence, before the moment Dominic Ashford sat across from his wife and understood for the first time that he had been living inside a completely different marriage from the one she had been surviving, there was a wedding. And the wedding was beautiful. And that is where everything that followed was set in motion. If this is your first time on this channel, subscribe right now and turn on notifications because we do not tell ordinary stories here. Stay until the end. The folder scene alone will change how you see everything. Serena Vale married Dominic Ashford on a Saturday in September in a church that smelled of old wood and fresh flowers and the particular warmth of a room full of people who genuinely wished two people well. She was 26, she wore her mother's pearl earrings and a dress she had chosen herself, and when Dominic saw her walking toward him down the aisle, his face did something that made 3 women in the front row reach for their handkerchiefs simultaneously. He took both her hands at the altar. His were trembling slightly, hers were steady. "You are the most extraordinary thing I have ever seen," he whispered. She laughed softly. "You are not supposed to say that yet." He said, "I don't care. I'm saying it now." After the ceremony, he kissed her for so long that the photographer had to gently remind them there were other shots to take. The guests laughed. Dominic pulled back just far enough to look at her face and then kissed her anyway, slower this time. The kind of kiss that carries a promise inside it. She had her hands on his chest and she was smiling against his mouth. And in that moment, she was certain with every part of herself that she had made the right choice. She had given up a great deal to be there. A shortlisted position at one of Birmingham's most competitive accounting firms, 3 years of savings she had built carefully after graduating with a first-class degree in financial management. Career momentum that her university mentor had told her was rare and worth protecting. When Dominic's company transferred him to their Coventry branch, Serena withdrew her application, packed her belongings, and told herself that love required sacrifice. She believed it because it was true. What she did not yet know was that some people receive sacrifices the way a fire receives wood. They simply burn it and ask for more. The first month of their marriage, Dominic came home on a Friday evening, sat at the kitchen table before Serena had finished setting out the plates. "Everything okay?" asked Serena. "Yes," he said, not looking up. "Just sending Mom her money." She set a plate down carefully. "How much?" he told her. She stood very still. "Dominic, that is almost everything. Rent is due in 11 days. He finally looked up. His expression was calm in a way that told her this conversation had already concluded inside his head before it began. "Serena, you know how to manage. Just this month. We'll sort it properly next month." Serena managed. She pulled from her savings. She paid the rent, the electricity, the groceries, the internet, the water bill, and a small amount she transferred quietly to her own mother who had been unwell and had not asked for anything, which somehow made it worse. She told herself it was 1 month. It was not 1 month. The second month, the same thing happened. Dominic's salary left their account and traveled to his mother Marguerite before Serena could blink. The reason that month was Elliot's university accommodation fee. Dominic's younger brother was in his 2nd year, and the housing costs had gone up unexpectedly. Of course Dominic would cover it. He was the eldest son. His father Gerald had died 4 years ago, leaving debts and a family home in disrepair and a grief that Marguerite had converted into expectation with such seamless efficiency that nobody in the family had noticed the transition. Serena understood all of this. She had married Dominic partly because she admired the fierce loyalty he carried toward his family. She had thought it was a sign of his character. She had not understood it was also a sign of something he had never been asked to examine. The third month, the reason was a repair on the family home's boiler. The fourth month, it was a contribution to a relative's funeral costs. The fifth month, it was Elliot again, a laptop this time, essential for his coursework. There was always a reason. The reasons were always real. That was what made them impossible to argue against and devastating to absorb. By the sixth month, Serena's savings were gone. She did not tell Dominic. She sat with that fact alone one evening after he had fallen asleep, doing the arithmetic in her head with the particular focus of a woman who has a first-class degree in financial management and is now applying it to her own disappearance. The numbers were unambiguous. She was out. She began taking freelance bookkeeping work, a hair salon 2 streets over. A woman named Patricia who ran a small catering supply business from a unit near the ring road. The income was modest, but she treated it the way a person treats water in a desert. She rationed it, she stretched it, she made it cover things it had no business covering. And she never mentioned it to Dominic because he never asked. He came home every evening to a warm flat, a cooked meal, paid bills, and a wife who smiled at him across the table. He kissed her cheek when he walked in. Sometimes he kissed her properly, both hands on her face the way he had at the altar. And she would lean into it because she loved him. And loving him was not the complicated part. The complicated part was everything surrounding it. He told his work friend Clifford that Serena was remarkable. She just handles things, he said one evening on the phone, while Serena stood in the kitchen doorway holding a dish towel. You never have to worry about her. Incredible manager. He was laughing softly. He did not see her standing there. She went back to the kitchen. She turned off the stove. She stood at the counter for a long moment with both hands flat on the surface. That night, something shifted inside her. Not a dramatic break, not a decision she could fully name yet. Just a small, precise movement, like the first hairline crack in a wall that still looks completely solid from the outside. She lay beside Dominic that night, listening to him sleep with the easy breathing of a man who has no idea anything is wrong. And she stared at the ceiling and began, very quietly, to think. Drop a comment right now and tell us where in the world you're watching from, and if you have ever been told to just manage. This story is for you. It was the 14th month of their marriage when Serena made a decision. She did not announce it. She did not argue about it. She did not consult anyone, including Pauline, her closest friend, who had been watching from a careful distance for over a year and has said nothing because she knew Serena well enough to know that she would speak when she was ready and not a moment before. Serena had noticed something. Coventry's corporate event scene had a persistent and unaddressed problem. The offices, the councils, the universities, the non-profits, the mid-sized companies holding quarterly team days and annual dinners. They all needed catering, and the catering was always mediocre, always ordered from the same 3 uninspired suppliers, always an afterthought dressed up as a decision. Serena had grown up watching her grandmother, Eleanor, cook for entire communities. Funerals, weddings, harvest celebrations, school fetes. Eleanor moved through a kitchen the way some people move through a familiar house in the dark, without hesitation, without panic, knowing exactly where everything was and exactly how long everything needed. Serena had inherited not just the skill, but the organizational precision underneath it, the ability to feed 200 people without losing control of a single element. She took £300 she had set aside carefully from her freelance work and she registered a business. She did it quietly on a Tuesday afternoon while Dominic was at work in the small spare room she used as a home office. She called it Serena Provisions. She had cards printed at a shop near the city center. She called Patricia from the catering supply unit and told her what she was doing. Patricia said she had been waiting for someone to do exactly this and immediately put her in contact with 3 event organizers she knew personally. Serena's first job was a walking lunch for 20 people at a small non-profit office on the edge of the city center. She made herb-roasted chicken thighs with seasonal vegetables, a wild rice and pomegranate salad, and individual lemon tarts that one of the attendees photographed and posted online without being asked. They called her the following week and the week after. Within 6 months, Serena Provisions was known across 4 corporate addresses in Coventry. Within 9 months, she had a rotating team of 3 women she brought in per event, all of them skilled, all of them reliable, all of them women who walked the way Serena walked, with precision and without drama. Within 12 months, she was clearing more money each month from the business than Dominic's salary. He had no idea. She was not hiding it out of spite. She knew exactly why she was hiding it, and the reason was not anger. She had watched for 14 months how Dominic received information about money. She had watched how quickly the logic of family obligation could reroute any available resource towards Marguerite before Serena could finish a sentence. She needed the business to be fully real, fully documented, fully hers before anyone else could reach for it. She kept the business income in a separate account. She paid the household bills from it as she always had, maintaining the appearance of the same careful management Dominic had always praised. The rest she reinvested or saved, and every month Dominic's salary left the account and went to his mother, and he came home and kissed Serena at the door and asked what smelled so good and sat at the table and ate and told her about her day. And she listened and smiled and said the right things, and underneath all of it, she was building something in the only space she had been left, the silence he had never thought to fill. Marguerite visited twice during this period. She was a tall, composed woman who had converted her widowhood into authority so completely that you could feel her opinion of a room before she had fully entered it. She had accepted Serena at the wedding with the specific warmth of a woman who is pleased her son has chosen well, but wants that son to know the choosing was ultimately her standard being met. During the second visit, Marguerite drew Dominic aside in the hallway while Serena was in the kitchen finishing a pot of soup. She did not lower her voice quite enough. "Is she working?" Marguerite asked. "She used to," Dominic said. "Now she manages the house." "Is she contributing anything?" "She manages everything, Mom. She's brilliant at it." Serena at the stove added a handful of herbs to the pot and said nothing. She had become a word, manages, a function, a setting on an appliance that was running smoothly and therefore required no further attention. She stirred the pot. She kept building. It was a Thursday evening in the 27th month of their marriage that everything cracked open. Dominic came home wearing the particular expression of a man who has already resolved something internally and is now only present to deliver the announcement. He sat, he asked for tea, he drank it slowly, both hands around the mug, in the way of someone gathering themselves. Then he looked across the table at Serena and said he needed to tell her something. His mother wanted to renovate the family home. A full renovation. The estimate from the contractor was £80,000. He had already told Marguerite he would handle it. He was planning to take a loan from his employer's salary advance scheme and redirect their savings contributions for the next 3 years. Serena set her cup down very carefully. "Our savings," she said. "We have enough of a base to Dominic. Her voice was quiet, quieter than he had ever had it. "What savings are you referring to exactly?" He frowned. "The household savings, the account we—" "There is no household savings account," she said. "There hasn't been for 19 months. He stared at her. "My personal savings ran out in the 8th month of our marriage," she said. It was not an accusation. It was a fact delivered with the precision of someone reading from a document. "Everything since then, every bill, every grocery run, every direct debit, every single month for the last 19 months has come from money I earned myself." The silence in the kitchen was the kind that fills a room completely, pressing into every corner, leaving nowhere to move. "How?" he said, not aggressively, with genuine incomprehension, as though the question had only just occurred to him and he could not believe it had taken this long. She stood up. She walked to the small spare room. She came back with the folder. She placed it on the table in front of him. "Serena Provisions," she said. "I registered it 14 months ago. Open it." He opened it. Bank statements, business registration documents, client contracts, VAT registration, a profit and loss summary showing 12 months of trading. His eyes moved across the numbers, and she watched his face do what faces do when the reality they had been inhabiting dissolves and is replaced by a completely different one. Confusion first, then recognition arriving slowly like light through a thick curtain. Then the specific embarrassment of a man who has been publicly praising his wife's management skills without ever once asking himself what she was actually managing or where the resources were coming from. Then something that wanted to be pride but could not quite decide if it had the right to be present in this particular moment. "You have been running a business," he said. "Yes." "For 14 months. "Yes." "And you didn't tell me." "No." He picked up the most recent bank statement. He looked at the closing balance for a long time. Then he put it down very carefully, the way you put something down when you understand its weight for the first time. "Ada," he said, and then stopped because he had used her grandmother's name by accident, the name Serena's family used for her when they meant something serious, and they both noticed it. "I want to have a real conversation, not a fight, a real conversation about what this marriage has been and what you have believed it was. Those are two different things, and I need you to understand both. Like this video right now if you feel what Serena is feeling, and keep watching because what she says next is the part that changes everything." Dominic did not interrupt. That was the first thing she noticed. She had prepared for interruption. She had prepared for the defensive pivot, the raised voice, the invocation of her mother's widowhood as a shield against accountability. She had prepared for all of it because she had lived with him for over 2 years and she knew how he moved through difficult conversations, usually by moving away from them. But he sat still and he listened. She told him she respected his love for her mother deeply and genuinely. She told him she understood what it meant to be the eldest son of a man who died, leaving things unfinished. She told him she had never once asked him to abandon his family, and she was not asking now. But she needed him to hear what his choices had communicated, regardless of his intentions. Because intention and impact are two different things, and a marriage cannot survive on intention alone. She said, "Dominic, when you hand your entire salary to your mother every month, and you turn to me and say, 'manage,' what you are saying underneath all the love and the loyalty is this: your needs are not my responsibility. Your survival is not my concern. Work it out yourself." She said it without cruelty, without tears, with the specific clarity of a woman who has rehearsed the honest version of this conversation rather than the angry one, because she knew the angry one would let him off the hook by giving him something to push against. He had nothing to push against, just the truth sitting between them on the kitchen table next to a folder of bank statements. "Dominic," she said, "I made a decision 2 months ago. I decided I was going to give this marriage one more season. 3 months. If nothing changed, if you continued to make decisions about our life without consulting me, without seeing me, I was going to leave. Quietly, the way I do everything." The temperature of the room changed. "I am not leaving," she said immediately. "I am telling you this because you deserve to know how close it came. And because I do not want any more secrets in this house, not mine and not yours." He looked at her for a long time. His eyes were doing something she had not seen in them before. Not guilt exactly, something deeper. The expression of a man who is looking at a person he thought he knew completely and understanding that he has been looking at a surface this entire time. "What do you want?" he said. Not rhetorically, not defensively. A real question from a man who has just realized he has never actually asked it. She told him. A partnership. Consultation on every financial decision before it was made, not after. For her contributions, the invisible sustaining daily contributions, to be named and acknowledged out loud and not just praised to his work friends as convenient management. For him to have a real, honest conversation with Marguerite about what was financially sustainable going forward. She told him she was not asking him to choose between his mother and his wife. She was asking him to stop arranging the marriage so that she was the one who paid for his loyalty to both. "Your mother is not my enemy," she said, "but the way you have built this has made me the one who disappears so she can feel secure. That is not love, that is not fairness, and I need you to see it." He was quiet for what felt like a very long time. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere in the building above them, a door closed. Then, Dominic covered his face with both hands. "I have been an idiot," he said. She did not agree, and she did not contradict. "You have been a person who was not paying attention," she said. "That is different from being a bad person. One of those things you can fix." He looked up. His eyes were red at the edges. "Show me the business again," he said. "All of it, from the beginning, slowly." She walked him through every page. He asked questions she had not expected. Genuine ones, not performative. How did you find your first clients? How do you manage the staffing for large events? What is your busiest season? How did you handle the VAT registration alone? He was not asking about the business. She understood that. He was asking about her, the version of her that had been sitting across from him every single day for 2.5 years, doing things he had never thought to ask about. At some point, he reached across the table and took her hand. She let him. His thumb moved across her knuckles the way it used to in the early months before everything became about management and survival and the quiet accumulation of unspoken things. "I don't deserve this hand right now," he said. "No," she said honestly, "but you have it anyway, because that is the kind of woman I am. And I need you to understand the difference between taking advantage of that and honoring it." He nodded. He did not let go. He called Marguerite the following evening. Serena did not listen at the door. She sat in the living room with a cup of tea and a book she did not read, and she waited. The call lasted 55 minutes. When Dominic came back into the living room, he looked like a man who had run a very long distance and had finally stopped. He sat beside her on the sofa and leaned his head back against the cushion and closed his eyes for a moment. "I have told her," he said. "I have told her I cannot continue to give everything. That I have a home here and a wife here and responsibilities here that I have been neglecting. I told her I will send a fixed amount every month, reliably without fail, but not everything, never again everything." Serena said nothing. She let the silence carry it. She was not happy, he said. "She will be okay," Serena said. "She's a strong woman. She has survived harder things than a reduced transfer." Something crossed Dominic's face, something that might have been gratitude or might have been the quiet surprise of being understood by someone you did not know was paying that quality of attention. He turned toward her on the sofa. He reached up and touched her face with both hands, the way he had at the altar, slowly, like something he was remembering. She looked at him. He kissed her forehead first, then her cheek, then her mouth, softly, without urgency, the kind of kiss that is not about passion, but about something more difficult, about returning to a person after being away from them without realizing you had gone. She kissed him back. Her hands found his arms and held them. They sat like that for a long time in their living room in the quiet of a marriage that had just survived something that many do not. They made a budget together that night, side by side, at the kitchen table, for the first time in their entire marriage. Her business income in one column, his salary in another, fixed expenses, savings targets, family contributions, an emergency fund, a holiday fund that she insisted on including and he did not argue with. There was a small disagreement about a date night allocation. She wanted a monthly line item. He raised an eyebrow at the number she wrote down. £20, he said. Per month, she confirmed. "Serena, that is 1 meal for 2 people. "It is a walk," she said without smiling, "and something warm afterward. That is enough." He started to laugh. A real laugh, unguarded and genuine, the kind that had been rare for too long. And then she smiled, finally, because the sound of it did something to her chest that she could not explain and did not need to. 6 months after that conversation, Dominic called his mother on a Sunday and did something he had never done before. He told her about Serena Provisions. He told her what Serena had built, the entire story. Marguerite was quiet for a long time after he finished. Then she said she wanted to come and visit. Not to ask for anything, just to visit. She arrived on a Friday afternoon and Serena cooked for her. Not from obligation, not from strategy. She cooked because Marguerite was Dominic's mother and Dominic was her husband, and that was reason enough. She made everything the old woman had mentioned loving in passing over 2 years of visits, dishes Serena had filed away without ever being asked to. After dinner, Marguerite found Serena in the kitchen. She stood in the doorway for a moment, then she said, "You have been carrying more than I knew." "Yes," Serena said simply. "My son did not see it. He sees it now." Marguerite crossed the kitchen and stood beside her. She put her hand on her arm the way older women do when they mean something they do not have the exact words for. Then she said, "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" The old woman almost smiled. "Someone easier to overlook." 3 years after the wedding that smelled of old wood and fresh flowers and genuine goodwill, Serena Provisions had a commercial kitchen unit on the outskirts of Coventry, 6 full-time staff, a corporate client list reaching Birmingham and Leicester, and a waiting list for weekend bookings. Serena had begun consulting for other small food businesses, working specifically with women who were building quietly from limited resources in the only space they had been left. Dominic was promoted. He sent Marguerite her fixed amount every month without fail, not because Serena required it, but because he had finally made the choice consciously, the way adults make choices, with full awareness of what he was deciding and why. They named their daughter Evelyn Grace. Serena chose Evelyn for her grandmother, who taught her that feeding people is one of the most powerful things a woman can do. Dominic chose Grace because he said he wanted their daughter to grow up understanding that grace is not weakness. It is the choice to extend what was never extended to you. Serena wrote the name down on the birth certificate form and said nothing, but she held it in her chest the way she held everything that mattered. She had been told to manage. She had managed her grief into discipline, her invisibility into a business, her silence into the most honest conversation her marriage had ever had. And when the moment finally came, she had not arrived with ultimatums or accusations. She had arrived with a folder and the quiet, devastating power of a woman who had been building in the dark and was no longer afraid of the light. If this story reached something in you, hit the like button right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you are not already here, because we tell stories on this channel that stay with you. And before you go, drop a comment and tell us where in the world you are watching from. Tell us if you have ever been told to just manage. We read every single comment and your story matters here. Do not wait until the folder is on the table to see what the person across from you has been carrying.